Got it. Civil Discourse now. This is January 24th, 2025. I'm Mark Small. Today, Cassie Jackson is on here also. She's on here so frequently. She is almost a co-host. Cassie, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks again for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Same here. And we're going to talk about Christofascism today.
And that's not the first time we've talked about it. We've done a couple of episodes if you want to scroll back with David Kenyon, which were really interesting. I just wanted to shout that out because he has a lot of really cool both opinions, but also knows a lot of history on the Bible and stuff. So anyway, go ahead, Mark. What do you want to start with?
No, I thought you were going to do that. I didn't want to have to do that. Well, okay.
Yeah.
What it is, it's essentially fascism is an authoritarian government with an individual usually at the kind of focus of it that pushes nationalism, authoritarian, so it doesn't allow people to really voice very much, and rules by decree or edict. And we have a movement in this country that's wanting to embrace that as a government.
Yeah. And Christianity in general, and this is what I've heard from a number of pastors that do not necessarily identify as Christian nationalists, but the role of pastors generally in the past, I feel like, is one of that politics, and I'm going to use their words, although a lot of times I don't understand the words. Politics is like of the world, right? And pastors in their roles are to be kind of above the world, not better than the world, but their calling is a higher calling, right? So of the world would be like all of the drama going on, right, including politics. And so they would like to stay away from that. And theoretically, that's exactly how it should be, right? But we're not in a theoretical time right now. We are in a real life. And what's happening is some of the Christian faith pastors have branched off and said, no, we very much do need to be in politics, right? And I think that's wrong. But I've also had a real issue with this idea of, okay, and there they go to do that. And the rest of the pastors are not quite sensing that there's an urgency to speak to that. I am not suggesting that people who have faith or are religious leaders need to compromise their values and come down, like I hear you when you say like politics is of this world but I would just question the thoughts and prayers when other people who are more radicalized in your religion are taking it into that sphere, and then not just taking it there, they're taking it and they are making moves in political positions to be able to then hijack the religion and discuss it and interpret it the way that they want to. It begs the question, at what point do you recognize that in today's times and kind of against what you're told to do, that you need to get your motherfucking ass in the game of politics because you've been drug into it, and if you're not going to counteract it, the religion is going to continue down that path. Because guess who's listening to you, pastors? One congregation, maybe a few services, one Sunday a week. Guess who is listening to the pastors who are politicians? Lots of people, right? All the time. News media, their social medias. So you're not in the game. And I want to know when you're going to get in that fucking game, because I've been trying to get people. Listen, go ahead, Mark. I'm going to let you speak now.
No. You were going. Okay.
I don't know when pastors are going to recognize that they are now doing a disservice to their religion and their congregants by having this idea of like, well, we aren't going to speak to it because no, you are being drug into it. And what Jesus would do, as he was drug into, in my interpretation, all kinds of things he didn't want to be drug into. For example, like we talked about previously, Jewish leaders wanted him to jump through a lot of hoops to be a Jewish prophet. Didn't want to do it. His own people were like, you should be a leader. You should try to be a king. He did not want to do it. Do you see what I'm...
Yeah, and that's also where somebody asked him about paying taxes, and he goes, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God that which is God's. But also, see, in Indiana,
Right. I mean,
um,
that's dissent. That's pushing. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but in Indiana, under the Internal Revenue Code, uh, a church is not for profit and is tax free, but there's a trade off there. It can't advocate politics, and since that's
That's
kind of what
fine.
you're, no, that's like when you have a church that functions as a political party,
Right.
or you have a political party that functions as a church. That's not what we're supposed to have in the United States. And in fact, that goes against the Constitution.
And
And
I think that, sorry, go ahead.
no, and I was just going to say, and anybody who wishes to from a political office wishes to say, well, no, this is a theocracy. Yeah, come on, take me on.
So no,
Let's talk about it.
you're making a good point for me, which is like, I mean, I'm almost trying to say the opposite. Now we're agreeing. It should not be this way, but like, what's the, I want you to speak to, I'm not asking you, like, what is the solution then when you have certain radical, and I'm just like throwing this out there for anyone, but if you have radical pastors who are now trying to interpret and have more power, if you will, in terms of coverage and accessibility to people and hearing their message, who are trying to, interpret the Bible and Jesus one way, at what where is the like, we know historically, and just people, not just pastors, there has to be a balance. And so at what point will pastors, or should they, or are you saying no, they should continue to say separation of church and state, separate, because we should all be saying that, but at what point has it tipped to now it's
We
like,
all should be doing that, not simply
right, but at
saying.
what point? That's true. I guess I answered my own question. The pastor should be saying that outright. They should be saying this should not be in the government. I don't want, instead of like not being of the world, they should just say, listen, I don't want to be involved in this. I'm saying it out loud. Christian nationalism is not Christianity. I'm going to preach about the Bible. I'm not going to preach about politics. I'm going to tell you how I feel Jesus is. I'm not going to worry about what they're saying. Yeah. All right. All right. I get it.
That's like when I hear
But I
people
also
say,
want that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they need to call it out. There has to be
yeah,
some kind.
but
It can't be like, yeah,
it's also like when people say, well, in post-Civil War South, well, the black people down there who'd been held in slavery weren't ready to govern themselves yet. It's like, okay, wait, don't just like, when is someone able to govern themselves and have freedom? Now.
right,
Period. I don't give a damn. Oh, well, they didn't know how to read and write. Well, you made laws against them learning. That's a little bit of an impediment.
right.
So when somebody starts saying, well, how do we set up doing about this, or whatever, you just don't. I mean, if you want to espouse politics and do it from a pulpit, you got a right to do that. You just don't get a deduction. You don't get to do the
Okay, but
tax.
this is what I'm saying. I don't want pastors. This is what I'm going to be clear about. I don't want pastors to get up and start spewing politics. I want pastors to get up and start saying, for example, I mean, this is the idea. This is a church that practices Christianity. We don't believe that Christianity needs to be the religion or for everyone here. We
Or
respect other religions. And
no
use the
religion.
words, Christian nationalism has no business being in our religion. It's not, that is politics with Christianity. We're not
That's
going to do
also
that here. But do you see what I'm
that's
saying? Like
also
they got to
oxymoron.
just say this. They got to be really clear. That shit's wrong and this is not what we're doing here. Because otherwise, they need to be, quite frankly, in the political game, in the sense, not that they're preaching political, but that they understand the way that they are perceived if they don't say anything. If they're going to continue on the thoughts and prayers and we're not going to actually address it, then I hope they're explicitly aware of how that, as opposed to the churches, which there have been some who are like Christian nationalism by name. That is not what we're about. And we're
But
going to,
that's a big point of the law. I mean, in 1943, I think it was Ballard versus or United States versus Ballard. the question, they started looking at whether a religion was legitimate religion. And the Supreme Court said, we don't go there. That's not we don't get involved in that. You don't say, well, do you have freedom of religion? Do you really have a religion? And they said, it could be the goofiest thing. I forget the exact words. It could be goofy as can be. That's not our question. The person has a freedom of religion. Now, when somebody starts saying God is talking to me about political issues.
Wait, I don't know if I'm following you on what how that tied to what I was saying.
Because that means that you get freedom of religion, understood. Well, you're going to qualify what is a real religion? Because people who are
no, I get that part, but how did that have to do with what I was saying about the pastor speaking up?
Because a lot of the protection of a church or religion is derived from the fact that it is a religion. And people who would say that they are Christian nationalists, they say this is the only religion. And the state should not be in the position, is not in position to say what is and is not a religion.
Right. So they should.
And then notching it up just a little bit, what they'll do is say, well, I don't believe in a religion. I believe in God. As though their belief is higher, on a level higher than anybody else, their beliefs. So this is marvelous today, Cassie.
Sorry, I didn't mean to drag it on, but I thank you for explaining it a little longer just for me. Sometimes.
Sounds cool. We'll see everybody out there. Have fun.